So hopefully the thumbnail that you clicked on showed a rousing success of a knife build, but right now I am very apprehensive and wary of the skills that I tend to stretch, the few skills that I have when it comes to knife making. But this build it's going to be a Bowie knife. This is a blank. I cut way oversized. Gave me lots of extra room to mess up on. So this is going to be the W2 core, because I love W2. It's really easy to work with. I know it well, and it welds easily when you're forge welding things to it and together. And these are shotgun barrels, Damascus shotgun barrels, and because of how they're made, which is, back in the day, the technology wasn't there yet for drilling a hole through a barrel to make it, and keeping it straight. So they would take a piece of steel and a mandrel, and they would wrap it around and forge weld it together like that. And it got the job done. You had a straight barrel, but as you can imagine, it's particularly dangerous because you're relying on a forge weld going from one end of the barrel all the way to the other. So using modern gunpowder in one of these is extremely dangerous. I mean, they're mediocre at best when it came to black powder. So Damascus gun barrels are extremely dangerous to shoot. So they end up being pretty cheap. So I picked up this 12 or 10 or 12 gauge, super cheap. It was really just a broken up piece. Didn't even have any of the hammer or anything like that. I just wanted the barrels of it, because nobody wants to shoot these, as they shouldn't. And so I'm going to cut these down the middle. I've already annealed them overnight, and then I'm going to hopefully flatten them out, and they won't break up on me as I flatten them out. And then forge weld them to the outside of this in a San Mai style, sandwiched with the W2 in the middle, Damascus gun barrel on the outside, because the customer happens to be happens to enjoy being outside, hunting, salt of the earth kind of customer. So I thought this would be a really cool way to incorporate their two passions, classic American knife with Damascus gun barrels. I think hopefully it turns out pretty cool, and hopefully I got the skill set to pull it off. But next step will be to slit these down the middle and then flatten them out, clean them up as best I can, and then forge weld them to the outside of this. So, what you're looking at is actually number 2. That was exceedingly frustrating. So you saw the first one. I don't know if there's enough detail, and I got so frustrated I stopped filming for a little while, so I apologize about that. But I wrapped it in stainless steel wire. Normally that works. Like, I haven't had much problem with that, and stainless doesn't, because of the temperature, and it's not a controlled, and you know, there's still some scaling and all that. The stainless wire, you just pull it right off, no big deal. And it normally works, but I got it all welded and hammered together, and I started, you know, working on the profile and everything. I see these huge gaps all around it, and I started chiseling it with the hammer, and I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And it like barely had any like welding in the middle of it, and that was about all I had. So I made another one, and this time I took it down to the garage, and I welded all the way around it. Big steel, or I had a big piece of W2, and I welded all the way around it in hopes that I would create an oxygen-free environment, no scaling, nothing like that. A little bit of borax around the welds in case I had some porosity there. And I noticed when it's cooling down that the edges are still dark, but the center's still hot. If the edges are darker than the billet underneath of it, or any piece of it, it's not welded. So I was getting so frustrated with that, and then it dawned on me, my forge will get hot enough to forge weld, but just barely. And I believe the time it took for me to take this out of the forge and put it onto the anvil and swing a hammer, it was losing just enough temperature to get the shotgun barrel on the outside was losing just enough temperature to not weld unless it was on the middle where there's more heat. So the edges were just, you know, all the heat was gone by the time I got it to the anvil, because I was taking just too much time. So I picked up the speed. I mean, I just would grab it and bam, hit it with the hammer, and I finally got some good results. Man, but man, was that frustrating. And there's still a few little places that are not to my liking. Luckily, they're not. You know, this I'm going to keep grinding back a little bit, so I'm not worried about that. I got one piece over here, and this is all. As long as I'm hoping to have this area here, because I'm going to have a double, or the false edge back here, but I want all of this to be the shotgun barrel, to have that contrast, and underneath it'll be the W2, which is just fine. That's exactly what I want. So the problems are out of the area that I'm working on, that I want it to be on. So that's good, but man, was that frustrating. So now I got it roughed in. I got a really thick profile down here, really thick edge right now, you know, like 50, 60 thousandths. I want it to, maybe even a little bit more. This might be, you know, closer to like 1/8 of an inch. But I'm willing to take the time grinding it and going through belts in order for this not to warp. I don't want to have to fix anything, and I don't want to put too much stress on the shotgun barrel outside, because as I was working it, boy howdy, was things opening up on me too, because of the Damascus, and everything was in a line of a Damascus, of the twist on the barrel. I mean, I can't believe how easily it started separating. It's kind of scary. Actually, it just confirms how scary it is to shoot a Damascus barrel. I mean, granted, heating it up in the forge and hammering it is a tremendous amount of stress on a material, but man, it was just so willing to break up on me. I can't imagine shooting one of those especially with modern ammo. That's crazy. So I'm gonna go get this in the forge. I'm going to get it like barely up to 1550, 1575, and then do a slow oil quench. I mean, I'm not, if I can get this between 56 and 58 Rockwell C, that's fine. I know I can get W2 up to 60, 61, 62, but I don't need that much stress on this material because it seems that the shotgun Damascus twist barrel is ready to fall apart at a moment's notice. So I'm going to be as ginger as possible with it. All right, so off to heat treating. Alright, so we've moved ahead again. I know, I'm sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of capturing everything for this one. But we are making progress. Frustrating, but progress nonetheless. And I did a real quick test etch, and you can see where we're going with this. It's probably not coming through on the camera, but you can see the Damascus barrel lines coming down, and that gets me really excited. So next I'm going to get the profile for the beginning of the tang. I was going to do a weld in some all thread for a nice pommel and all that stuff, pommel nut. But yeah, finally getting somewhere with this thing. Yeah, sorry for not showing everything, but it's just been so frustrating to work with this all the way through. But we got a primary edge here, we got a false edge on the back. I put in a secondary one because I really wanted to get rid of all the hammer marks without taking the whole piece down. And I could have taken the whole piece down, it looks like, maybe. I don't know. I think it would have changed everything pretty dramatically. But I got a second. It thins it out by doing this other bevel on the top here. So that's helping it look a little thinner, because it's a little chonky right now. She's a little thick. So next I'm going to put in the next step of this, which is going to be figuring out where I want it to come down, come across. Oh, it's super wet right now. I just cleaned off all the ferric chloride. I think it's going to come down, real close here, and then have a nice smooth little swoop there, and then right here, and then the tang will come through like that, and I'll smooth out this transition. But this piece will be coming off, and that'll be about it. I mean, except going all the way back. And then from here on, I'll weld in a piece of all thread for a pommel nut, because this isn't enough of a tang for me. I want a little bit more of a tang. Should have hammered it out while I had the chance, but I was focusing so heavily on this Specifically this area right here, which turned out really nice. But yeah, I was focusing so hard on getting that weld to set that it totally blinked on me to extend out this thing. So I'll get this, probably cut this, grind this, and then finish it all off. We'll continue with that part. I might do a little bit of hand sanding just to get, to finish a little bit farther along before I start messing with everything. Sometimes that's a risk because you might be working on something down here, slip, and then you wreck all your finish. But I don't know. This is the next step. Cut this out. Alright, it's been a little while getting back into this one. It's only been a blip for you guys, but it's been a few days for me. Got the part of the tang ground before I slot it and put in some a longer thread with a bolt on it so I can get a nice pommel nut on the end of it. Next up, I got this piece, and I got it cut out from a nice big chunk of steel I got lying around. And I'm going to start working on the laying out how I want this to go. Pick it up a little bit. And yeah, mark it up, do a little bit of math, throw this thing on the mill, and start getting it cleaned up. Get the nice big hole in it so I can get this guard fit up. Then I'll slot a hole in it and put a longer piece of steel in there for putting the pommel nut on and the rest of the handle. All right, we're looking good. I know it's a little more complicated than just making it, you know, threading a piece of small round stock, but this gives me a lot more surface area to weld to, gives me a nice thick handle back here. It just wasn't enough for me, so adding this extra bit onto is going to help a lot. And our guard that we started making earlier slides on real well, so not worried about that. Next steps, I guess, is to start getting this more into shape, rounding off these corners and all that, and getting this to be the exact profile that we want. So that's what I'm off to next. A lot more time on the grinder with that. Alright, as you can see, we are up to a 220 grit finish on our guard. I get the bent over just a little bit on both ends, just a little bit of a curve to break up that straight line, and it's fitting on there surprisingly good. I mean, it's gonna need definitely some small adjustments, but less than I thought. So hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. So while we're in this stage, and I can still mess up finishes and not feel too bad about it, I got this awesome piece of leopard wood, and the client happens to be a fan of reptiles. And I call it leopard wood because of all the spots and all that, but if you get the right piece of it, it kind of looks like a snake belly in my opinion. So I'm hoping to get 2 pieces of this and sandwich it together and have a snake belly handle for the client. I think that'd be really cool. So I'm going to cut some of this out and then make a sandwich kind of handle for the back. And that'll make it easier on me to take it to the mill and route out the exact shape that I want. You know, I got this mill, might as well take advantage of it. Alright, so we have successfully glued up our wooden part of our handle, and I put some pins into the guard, so every time we slide everything together, this side's up, it should line up the same way every time. Hit it with the hammer a little bit. Should line up the same way every time, so that, you know, because everything's got a little bit of wiggle to it, but doing this way, you eliminate the difference between these 2 spots, so that helps out a lot. And next, I already got the pencil marks out, and marked around the guard, and I made a circle, or I guess an oval back here for the rest of it. So next, gonna hit it on the belt sander, get it to closer to shape with some 120 grit, something like that. Probably 60. Really knock it out. But this stuff does tear out pretty easily, so you got to work your way into it slowly, and then once you get close, you got to really slow down and not try to take too much out in one go. So here we go on to forming this handle, getting it to shape. So we're at a really good point now where we got a lot of the pieces all in place. Even got a pommel nut made, and it fits in there really good and works really well. Use an 1/8 inch whatever rod that you got. This happened to be a drill. Tighten it down with the hole, and we're at the point where now it's time to start finishing everything, you know, getting up the grits with our surface finish. You can see how I got the pins on this side and the receiving holes on this side. So every time you do it, put it right back in the same spot. That's pretty critical if you're trying to get a really nice fitment and a really nice fit there. And also on this side, I know it takes a, you know, it's not the same design as going all the way through, but then when you have a piece like this, you don't have to go all the way through to hold it steady. The pommel nut and the pressure of holding it in will keep it all together. You just got to keep it from spinning. So I go with, I'll put in the pins and get them down to about half the width of this would be their height, and then I just drill in and get that so it doesn't, you know, it lays on there. And I put the pommel nut on, and then it doesn't spin. So there's no need to go all the way through. I mean, unless that's what you want your finish to look like, that's totally fine too. You can have that little rugged, more rustic sort of deal. But now it's a lot of boring hand sanding, going up the grits until I get it to where I want. And then the next step, I'll probably skip all that boring hand sanding stuff, but the next step that I'll show you will be the caustic bluing. So we're going to get this up to a nice finish, this two and this one, and we'll get it up to a nice finish, and then we'll do the caustic bluing, which will make it nice dark black crisp finish. And I'll also do the blade too, you know, because there's still a whole bunch of marks from the 60 grit belt and all that jazz, so lots more work to do. It's interesting, every time I come back there's another crack in the Damascus gun barrel on the outside. It's not the W2 on the base, you know, as our center. It's the Damascus gun barrel. I mean, it's under a tremendous amount of stress, but again, every time I come back and see a new crack, it reinforces how dangerous it is to shoot the Damascus gun barrel. All right, lots of boring work for me. Alright, you can see our pieces are nice and shiny. They've been polished and cleaned and are ready to roll. Now my setup's a little janky when it comes to doing this super dangerous caustic bluing, but it does get the job done. So main thing here is to make sure that there is absolutely no water in your pieces that you're about to blue, because if you dropped them, if you cleaned them, if you put them in your mouth for whatever reason, that water becomes very dangerous. And I turned this off and we're still at 240 degrees. See, no boiling, but we are well above the temperature that water boils. So if you had water inside of one of these little pockets there or anything like that, it can be very dangerous. You just don't want this stuff popping onto you. So sometimes before I put mine in, just as an extra precaution, I'll hit it with the torch, warm it up a little bit, make sure you get every bit of liquid out of there. ingredients of what's in here is sodium nitrite and sodium hydroxide. So I forget what sodium nitrite actually is, but sodium hydroxide is lye, caustic soda, which is very bad for your skin. So you don't want that splashing onto you. And the whole point of this is to get it up to 285, 290 degrees. And at that temperature, you get a really nice black hue, oxidation on your part, on your pieces. And to get there, you mix the water with the sodium nitrite and the sodium hydroxide, and you're bringing up the boiling temperature of that water with those chemicals. So you are well above boiling temperature, but it's still a liquid. So you got to be very careful. In there, I want to let it go for 5 to 10 minutes. Move it every once in a while to make sure you're getting all the entire piece, covered. Usually it's a little bit more clear, it's a little bit more white. Mine is particularly old. Let's hope that it still gets the job done. But you want to make sure you are at 285, 290. We're definitely there. So we will let this sit. I usually put on my headphones, get 2 or 3 songs, and then pull it out, dunk it in the water, clean it off as fast as you can. All right. I paused the video and brought you guys back in for the final moment. It doesn't look like much now because it's covered in filth, but man, they turn out so good. I wish this process was a little less dangerous. So next we gotta get to the water, clean them off, and then I'll meet you guys back over here. All right. I mean, check that out. Am I right? And I haven't done much on this side. That still needs a lot of work. And it's going to be also etched with the ferric chloride in order to bring out the difference between the shotgun barrel and the W2. But, I mean, look at that. Sometimes you just got to put things together with a quick test fit just to check your progress. Because, it's a lot of work with a lot of pieces all apart for a long time. And you put it together and you finally got something. But yeah, look at that. It helps inspire you to get back to work. So close. So next up, I haven't even finished this handle yet. Next up, got to finish up hand sanding this, and then etch it, and then assembly. And then we'll have a nice, pretty badass Bowie knife. I think it's going to look great. Now, I'm very pleased with how this turned out. I mean, it's not a Kyle Royer mirror finish, but man, still pretty damn cool. Really just steps up your game a little bit, right? Like each thing you do, a pommel nut that's custom made, blackening these pieces with the caustic bluing, picking a really nice wood. It just steps up your game. All these little things step up your game. And if you do all those little things in one knife, then you get a really nice piece. All right, back to work. Boy, howdy, did that turn out way better than I expected. I am very pleased. I'll admit I had some difficulties there, and I was worried that things were not going to turn out as well as they have. You see, all the pieces are a little bit shimmery. I got some oil on them. Let's put some food safe oil on this side. I know they're going to cut a cake with it for their wedding, but I'm not sure what's going to happen after that. So I figured better safe than sorry. But I put Boyle linseed oil on the handle and some linseed oil on these as well, because you got to remember, when you do a caustic bluing, a heat bluing, anything like that, it's not the oxide layer that you build that really keeps it from rusting. It's maintaining it with a layer of oil, because it's the oxide layer that holds the oil, not necessarily keeps things from rusting. So if you are going to do the go down the caustic blue route, don't forget to oil your pieces. But yeah, look at this. Who would have thunk it that it would look this good? Great contrast between the shotgun barrel and the W2. You can see all the Damascus lines going down the shotgun barrel. I'll get some better pictures of this, don't worry. You know, there'll be some beauty shots at the end of this video. And an unintended consequence of or not consequence, but benefit of using W2, a sneaky hamon in here. So if you can't get a hamon out of W2, you gotta go back to school, because I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm unintentionally getting it constantly. I wanted to harden it so it'd be a contrast between these two, but I ended up with a hamon on both sides in the same spot. So, and you can just look at all the lines going through the Damascus. You can see each band of Damascus. Wow, wild. So cool. But yeah, here it is. And let's put this bad boy together and see what we got. This piece goes on there. We'll put in that side. Freshly oiled handle. Put this on here. Then we'll take the pin or the pommel nut. This I might need to go off screen for this one. I'm tightening it down over here. Sorry you can't see it, but it was hard to do all of that and hold it at the same time, so gotta get that tightened down. Nice. And bammo! There it is. Classic fighter Bowie knife style. Got a nice fit in the hand. Man, does that look good, huh? Ooh, I got that a little offset. Hold on. Let me fix that while we're here. I wonder if I got some schmutz in there. My pins should fit just fine. Because I've tested this before. The only difference would be the oil, so it could have expanded the handle, which wouldn't surprise me. And changed all of my fittings up ever so slightly. There it is. See, that's much better. Now all the way around, nice and tight. But cool, huh? Look at that. Man, I was worried I wasn't going to be able to pull it off, but man, is that gorgeous. What a neat knife. I think the client is going to be very pleased. So I'm going to keep this in a humidity controlled environment, because it's springtime here soon. And when the client's ready, they'll come pick it up, and hopefully I'll reveal it. I'm also going to make a sheath for it, because it's just, even if the client doesn't request one, I'll put, make a nice leather sock or something. It's just for transport reasons, because, if you make a knife and it's sharp, you shouldn't, give them something to put it in, even if it's just a temporary thing. But yeah, this one's going to get a nice sheath on it. I believe they're right-handed, so that'll be, that's pretty easy. It's what I'm familiar with. Well, all right. I'll put up some beauty shots and call this one done. Thanks for watching.